Hello everyone, today we are going to see what is Strimzi Kafka and how to set up Strimzi Kafka on our Docker or on our Kubernetes cluster or even Minikube or KGOS. So what is Strimzi? So Strimzi provides a way to run a Apache Kafka cluster on Kubernetes in various deployment configuration, and for development it was easy to set up cluster in Minikube in a few minutes. So earlier, to set up the Kafka, we required zookeeper and all, and that makes very difficult to set up Kafka on anywhere and manage it. But Streamzy Kafka makes our job very much easier. So first understand what is Streamzy operator. So Streamzy operator manages Kafka cluster on Kubernetes, like its deployment, scaling, upgrades, and many other things. So first we set up the CRD. So CRD stands for custom resource definitions, and and we can set up this using kubectl, get CRD and then apply. We can check even the CRD as setups or not, and if it was not set up, then we can set up that. We will do later. So CRD is like Kafka topic Kafka user allow you to create Kafka cluster and topics as Kubernetes resources. So before applying for any clusters or config or node pool that you can see on the left side. So for that we required first CRD need to be set up on our cluster. So Steamji Kafka is Kafka Craft. So what is Craft? Craft stands for Kafka Raft Metadata Mode. So so earlier we need to keep the record of metadata, we require the zookeeper, but in Strimzi Kafka it is draft, and it's a new way of Kafka manage its metadata without zookeeper. So traditionally Kafka needs zookeeper to store metadata about topic, partitions, configurations, cluster states. But with craft mode, Kafka browser stores metadata themselves, no need of any zookeeper. It is internal raft protocol. So in using craft mode, there is no need of zookeeper at all. It simplifies cluster setup and maintenance. So benefits of craft mode is its simple architecture. You don't need a separate zookeeper cluster, and it's better scalability and easy operations. So in Strimzi currently, most Strimzi YAMLs like uses zookeeper mode, like the setups earlier we have discussed, and we use the setup done earlier. But in craft mode it is supported in the newer Kafka versions, but most configure the Kafka section to use craft mode instead of having zookeepers. So let's first see the official page of craft Strimzi. So as you can see the Strimzi official page, you can set up it on Minikube or KGOS or Kubernetes client, or even on the Docker desktop. If you want, anyone wants to set up it, then you can easily set up it. So first it's required to create the Kafka clusters, and even you can use this directly Kafka cluster, or if you need any custom setup, then you can create your own cluster files and then you can apply it. So once it's set up, you can also set up the UI and the cluster config and all the node pools and everything. Even you can find it Strimzi Kafka operator on artifact hub. From there you can use the default, even you can directly use it using the helm, or even if you want to create your own default values, you can update something like many persons wants their own configuration, resources and everything. So they use the default value, they first edit it and then they are going to install the things. That's also a good way. So like you can also go through all these official documentation pages. Now let's move how to start with the installation. So first I have created my own cluster configuration, like custom. I have mentioned everything, how much retentions hour I want, how many replicas, minimum replicas, and everything, listener and all I have setups. Then then we can also set up the node pool, like dual or what, and then we can set up the PVC and all for the data loss and the metadata storage. We can set up how much storage we want to give and how much replica we want, and what is the role of that node pool, your controller, broker and all. Then we can also set up the UI for it, beautiful UI you can see. Once you set up the Kafka UI, where you can manage the topics, messages, you can see, and all the things through UI also, and it's very good. Most of the person you use UI, so that's also better. So once you keep ready all these files in your system, then we join for the apply one by one on our cluster. So apply command is like, first we are going to create, we have to create the Kafka namespace, like any namespace whatever you want, that you have to mention here on which namespace same here you want to you have to mention. So final apply is create namespace. First create the namespace on cluster, then the like install the strimzi.io, and it's help us to set up all the things. Okay, like the like we have discussed the operators and all, what the need of operators. So it lists all the custom resource CRD for Kafka provided by Strimzi, and like it helps us to create the topic, Kafka users, and all the things. So that's why first we set up the operators, and then once you set up the operators, once you applied this command, then you can check and verify whether the operator setup is successfully done or not, and what the CRD and all you can find, you can see. Once operators setup is done, then you can go for apply the cluster config file, this one. Okay, where you mentioned all the cluster configuration details. Once you apply the cluster configuration detail, then you can apply for the node pool. How much like in node pool we mentioned how many nodes we require to run our Kafka and all the things, and how much storage you want to provide for the data loads and the its draft metadata storage and all the things. Once you apply the cluster configuration and the node pool, then you can see whether it's whether the node pool is pods are started and all. Once the node pool is ready, once the Kafka is ready, then you can set up for the UI. So for set up the UI, you can create emails like this I have, even you can use the direct just inbuilt what the Kafka provides, but that also finds if you but I prefer to create my own YML with my own configuration. Definitely everyone takes the helps of the official documentation, only follow the official documentation what they have mentioned for creating and all. But yeah, you can edit the default value that they have provided. So once the UI is you applied, then you can see the port for the Kafka UI started running. Once it's get started running, then you can port forward it, and then you can see the so you can see the UI looks like something like this once you apply it. In here you can see the topics and the consumers or brokers and every detail you can see on the UI. You can create the topic, you can see the messages available on that topic and all. So that's a simple configuration of the Kafka on clusters. Thank you.